I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Rob Kessler. Rob is an inventor, a boat captain, a serial entrepreneur, and the inventor of the $1 million collar. Today, I want to find out from Rob how he's been able to take some of the skills he's learned in other industries and transfer them over into what he's doing now. Join me today in my conversation with Rob Kessler. I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Rob Kessler. Good day, fine sir.
How are you, Brian? Good to see you.
I'm well. It's good to see you as well. We got to have a little chat here a moment ago, and I really appreciate you coming on here, taking the time and sharing with people what you have to offer in the space of work. What what industries are you in currently, and what is some things that you're up to nowadays?
It's a good list. I am a inventor. First of all, is that my main thing? I invented $1 million collar. So think collar stay, except 9 inches long, and it goes down the front of your shirt where the buttons and the holes are. So anybody watching can see that my shirt just pops right back in. So most people don't wear a tie with a dress shirt these days. And after seeing my wedding photos and seeing how bad my shirt looked, I decided to come up with a solution. So I invented $1 million collar about 8 years ago. My wedding anniversary is in a couple days, so it was 8 years ago.
Correct. Congratulations.
Um, we also have our own dress shirt called Go Tieless, which is the first shirt designed to be worn without a tie, with my technology built in, obviously. And I'm also a 50-ton, about to be 100-ton master captain. So I have a yacht charter business here in Los Angeles. So we take people out for pleasure cruises and just get out and enjoy the weather and look for dolphins and have a couple cocktails. I mean, they do, I don't. But when the government decides that we can work, then we get to run that business. But we're in between right now.
You are in a few different industries, and I know that you were in several more.
Mhm.
When did it all start for you, Rob? What was your first job, maybe as a preteen, teenager? What was the first thing that maybe got you out of the house to make a dollar?
Well, I wanted my driver's license, and mom said, if you're going to drive, you got to pay for the insurance. So the only way to do that was to get a job. So I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where we have the world's largest music festival. It's called Summerfest. It's 10 days long. We have 10 to 12 stages, and for 12 hours a day on all 10 stages, there's music going constantly, and it draws people from all over the world. And there was a little pizza joint there that I was serving slices of pizza, and that was my first job. And I ended up going to work at the restaurant. I worked all the festivals all summer long.
How old
um,
were you then?
15 and a half, or whenever you can start working. um, I did lawns and stuff when I was younger than that. It wasn't an actual job, but
Hmm.
start cutting all the neighbors' lawns and things. But the first job that got me into thinking about entrepreneurship and really doing my own thing was when I was about 16. I got a job at a soccer and volleyball store. Was a highly competitive soccer player,
Sorry, what was it?
and
What was it called?
it's called Sportworks. It was a little soccer and volleyball store
Okay.
in my town, and um, from day one, the owner gave me a key to the front door. He gave me a code to the alarm and just put all of his faith and trust in a 16, 17-year-old knucklehead like me and all the other guys. And we all just poured our heart and soul into it. This guy just made us feel like it was ours. And I mean, within a year, I had kind of worked my way into the finance side of it and was helping with ordering and doing some books and like learning that side of the business. And it just felt like it was my business. And it was really, really amazing.
Did you find, it's hard to know what you thought then, but that made school a little bit more lively in some of the subjects that you were learning? Because I didn't have that experience, especially if someone's pouring so much into you and you're getting to experience different aspects of the business. You weren't just delivering pizza slices to someone. You were in behind the scenes and working with money and all of that. Do you find that that might have helped you with your idea of the purpose of school?
I actually was the opposite. I couldn't wait to get out of school fast enough to
Hmm.
go do that. Like I just
Hmm.
wanted to be a part of it. So after high school and I graduated college, I had that job, and I would literally go to work for a couple hours in the morning, then go to a couple classes, and then go back to work for a couple hours, and then go back to a couple classes, and then go back and close the store. So and then the stuff I felt like I was learning in school was just not applicable to what was really
Hmm.
happening in real life. So I had a really hard time with school. About 2 years in, I had started sloughing off on classes. I was taking the minimum amount of credits required. And after 2 years, I was about to drop out. And I took a long, hard look at life. I mean, I was making $14,000 an hour or a year at 18 or 19 years old, and thought I was in hog heaven. But um, I took a long, hard look, and I decided to graduate. I was the first person in my family to ever graduate college. So I caught up in the last 2 years. I still worked full time throughout those all 4 years of college. I was able to catch up, graduate in 4 years with my degree in marketing while working full time. So
So
I'm one of
as
those people, when I get a goal, I just stick to it, and I'm just bullheaded and just barrel through and just keep going. So.
so as you started to get a little bit more mm, perspective on the need for college, or to finish it at least, what were you thinking you were going to do with it? Was that part of the soccer and volleyball store as well? You were thinking you could use this with it, or you were going to go off on a different adventure?
So about that time, I was going to quit school. The two owners of the soccer volleyball store parted, and one was being the guy that hired me and that gave me all that confidence, was being advised by my father, who had his own business. He had a jewelry store, several jewelry stores, and so Tim and my dad were working together. Tim was trying to buy out the other owner. He didn't want to sell, so it went the other way. And then Tim literally walked into my dad's office one day and said, "I'm coming to work for you." And he said, my dad was like, I don't have a job for you. And he goes, "I don't care. Whatever you want me to do. If it's take out the garbage, I don't care what it is, but I'm coming to work for you." And I ended up following him about 6 months later, and so I went to work for my dad with Tim.
Why did the guy
And
want to work for your dad? Was there something that he saw in your dad, just the industry that he was in?
my dad's pretty visionary. He broke all the rules in the jewelry industry and became the third largest independent jeweler in the country. If anybody's in the jewelry industry, they know our family, our business. If you were anywhere in the state of Wisconsin and you ever had a radio on, you know our name, because my dad ran about 3,000 radio ads a week.
What was the
So
name of the business?
it's called Kessler's Diamonds. And it was, unlike most jewelry stores where you can get watches and crystal and colored stones and all that, it was diamonds, diamond engagement rings, totally diamond focused. He also implemented the strongest warranty in the industry, where everybody says, "Oh, we have a lifetime warranty." You just have to come in every 6 months and have it all checked out. And after about the first 6 months or second 6 months, you forget about it, and then your warranty is void. We had no loopholes, no nothing,
Mhm.
nothing like that. Never had a sale after 1991 or 1992. My dad hated negotiating in life, so he said, "Well, I'm not going to do it in my business." So he just set prices, and that's it. There's no negotiating, there's no sales, there's no up, there's no down. This is the price, take it or leave it, full time, full warranty behind it. And he just exploded from the smallest independent jeweler to the largest in Wisconsin in about 10 years.
What would have been the reason why you didn't get into it earlier? Or was it something you wanted to go on your own? Was that just not,
The jewelry business,
yeah, into the jewelry business?
um, I it just never was an opportunity, really. My dad and I, we kind of butt heads a little bit when I was a
Mhm.
teenager and growing up. And so during college and after college, we kind of gotten closer. And
Mhm.
can you imagine going in and spending five, six, eight, $10,000 on an engagement ring from a 18-year-old kid? That's,
It's a
you know
good
what I
point.
mean? I mean, it's just a little bit where do I belong? But my sister, she did.
Yeah.
She was much more mature than I was, but she, from 18 on till today, she works for the company. She's been there. She's the head buyer now, and so she's been with the company over 20 years. So, but that was her path, and
So as you went into the business and you moved into being a boat captain and inventing the shirt that you have now, the $1 million collar, what are some of these skills that you've developed and you're able to transfer over into the work that you do today?
one of the things I really learned throughout the years is customer service. Um, you know, even with Million Dollar Collar being an online business, I respond to emails as fast as I can. I try to do everything I can to make it right. And that's something I learned from my dad. I mean, if you just take care of people better than they expect, then it's going to be a good thing, and it's going to come back in spades. And so, customer service, no matter what we do, we just always try to go above and beyond what people's expectations are, no matter what business we're doing.
How did you get into being the boat captain that you are?
Uh, I always just loved being on the water. My aunt and uncle were in Detroit, so I would go over there every summer and spend 4th of July on their boat. And then my wife, she grew up on boats as well, so she spent some time on boats, and we just kind of had the passion. We ended up getting a little ski boat when we were in Wisconsin before we moved out to California, and it just has always kind of found a way into our lives because it was something we were passionate about. So.
Was it a little nerve-wracking? Were you hesitant about starting your own touring company?
It's always nerve-wracking starting a business. I mean, but I always think big and go big too. So my first house wasn't a house, it was a duplex. And it was like, I don't really know how to do any of these things. Now I got to learn how to do it on two houses in one house. But it turned out great because my downstairs tenants, I always had a tenant. And so they always paid the mortgage. So I never had a mortgage payment for 9 years. And then we bought a commercial building. And so same kind of thing, like we got our businesses up and running, and then we rented out half of that building, and those guys paid for our mortgage. So instead of me just buying a thing or doing a thing, I always try to find a way to make it pay for itself. So um, yeah, it was nerve wracking for sure, especially when it took 5 months to get licensed through the city of Los Angeles, and we couldn't really run our business. And so we have this asset that's costing us thousands and thousands of dollars a month, and we can't even operate. So it was a little scary in the beginning, as the money was dipping down quickly.
So you were in real estate for a period of time. Are you still in real estate?
So I had my my residential real estate license in Wisconsin for 15 years. And then I started buying commercial real estate. I do want to get back into it. I really am passionate about it. I went to college to do architecture originally because
Mhm.
I would rearrange my bedroom all the time, and that soccer and volleyball store, I would rearrange it so I
Mhm.
could see conceptually and spatially where stuff could go and where it should go. And I really thought that real estate was the way, or architecture was the way for me. And um, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee was like the #2 architecture school in the country, so it was insanely competitive. You had to carry a really high GPA, and I just wasn't a student that could compete with that. So I ended up going into marketing and then getting into real estate. Where I'm from was on the east side of Wisconsin, the east side of Milwaukee. Those houses were all built in the 20s and 30s, so really, really amazing architecture and lots of detail and old craftsmen. And so I got to tour all of these amazing houses and then help people buy them. And so I thought that was the best of both worlds.
That's right. And carrying what you said about the skill over of taking care of people, customer service, and I think that's not better seen in real estate, where you're helping people get their home, sometimes their first
Mhm.
homes, which is one of their biggest investments of their lives. And if you can be that person there that they can trust and always go to with their questions, help them find their dream home, then you have it made.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that I sold the three biggest things that most people buy: houses, cars, and diamonds. And so I think that that customer service, especially when you get to that level and that price point, is that much more important. So
So
definitely.
so now that you're in with the $1 million collar, promoting that as well as your tieless shirt, what is some satisfaction, but also some difficulties you have with this venture?
So the hard part with Million Dollar Collar is that it's sewn into the shirt. And the reason that is because both sides of the placket, that part with the buttons and the holes, is visible. So I looked at doing an iron
Mm.
on, I looked at doing all kinds of different ways to do this. And financially, the least expensive way was actually to sew it in. But in the US, at least in the US, people are somewhat lazy. We just don't put a lot of value into tailoring and altering clothes. Like,
Mhm.
people here just buy it off the rack and either fits or it doesn't. And in the rest of the world, where we sell a lot of product without a lot of advertising, people are going to the tailor all the time. They're always taking those shirts in and out, making sure the pants fit right. And so it's not as big of a thing to overcome. So the overcoming that was a challenge with $1 Million Collar. So our original focus was direct to consumer. And then we spent a lot of time working with dry cleaners and tailors and going to trade shows and introducing the product to them, because, the guy that's dry cleaning your clothes, he cares about the way that he looks enough that he's paying somebody else to clean his clothes. So we thought that that customer was there. So we're in about 650 dry cleaners and tailors now. So that has paid off. And we're really pushing back and getting back into the licensing side. So we're looking at big brands to just take the technology and install it during production, because it's almost seamless into their production process. So we originally, after we got the patent, went right to the manufacturers, and they thought it was cool, but we didn't have any numbers. We didn't have any sales. We just had this idea. And so that's why we went right to consumer and built up the sales base. We sold about 325,000 sets, 330,000 sets so far. So now we've got that, like, hey, people love this. We're getting 5-star reviews. People are saying it's totally changed the way that they look in dress shirts. We know that people want it. Now we have that leverage to go back to the brands and try to get a license to them.
Yeah, you make a point about the dry cleaners. Here in South Korea, every little section of apartments has a dry cleaners, and they're relatively close. They're a really big part of just everyday life. Whereas in the United States or Canada, not many people, they're businesses and they do well, but it's not at the forefront of most people's thinking of getting my shirt altered or doing something else to my clothes.
Yeah, it's just one more thing to have to do. It's one more stop you have to make. And fortunately, the dry cleaners, some of them are paying attention, and they have pickup and drop off services, which make it a lot easier. I mean, when I worked at the car dealership even, and at the real estate, they just came to the business. So I just hand them a bag of dirty shirts, and on Monday morning or Tuesday morning, I would get all my shirts back and I'd have my clothes for the week. So they're really starting to think, but what we found so far is most of the dry cleaners are just, this is my business. I launder shirts, and they don't make much money on it. I mean, if they make 75 cents laundering a shirt because there's so much labor involved, that's a lot of money. And so we thought we were offering them this really great opportunity. And, the business guys have gotten on board, but it's been a lot harder to get to the dry cleaners than I thought it was going to be.
We can order online the collar, correct?
Yes.
What is the proper name for the mechanism that goes into the shirt?
So we call it a placket stay. So that part of the shirt, like I said, with the buttons and the holes, is called the placket. We're not called perfect placket because almost nobody knows what a placket is. So $1 Million Collar kind of puts you in the right region. But yeah, it's called a placket stay.
So we can order those and we can just take them to our own tailor if we so choose.
Yeah, absolutely. Every order comes with really detailed instructions. It's literally open an inch of stitches, slide it in, sew it back together. Don't sew too tight. Otherwise, it works great and it'll last the life of the shirt.
What is some satisfaction? Go ahead. And you have a what?
I was going to say there's a video on our website about how to do the installation that you can show.
What is some satisfaction you're getting out of this?
Well, I mean, a 5-star review is, a totally unsolicited, dude, this has changed this, or people put up a photo and tag us on social media. And it's like, they care enough about the product that they've gone out of their way to say, hey, I look great and this is why.
I wore a shirt today, which was I didn't do it on purpose. It was my very next one in line. I'm like, oh, you know what? This is perfect. It just falls down naturally.
Yeah.
The contrast. As you mentioned, the skills that you have, the skills that you carry forward, how are you staying productive with using your skills and staying on top of all the businesses that you're in? This year has been a little bit different, but what gets you your feet on the ground and into all your businesses each day?
There's just certain things that I need to do. I have a list hanging from my computer that blocks out 30-minute time schedules of get this done, get this done, get this done. So make sure that I get my social media posts out. I'm always on emails if I'm, unless I'm in a project, if that email thing bings, I want to respond right away, especially if it's a customer. So I make sure that I'm on top of that. The boat is challenging in that there's always something that I can be doing on it. So, little projects to fix here and there, or do an oil change or whatever, wash it down. It's a nice, the boat's actually been amazing, because if I didn't have that, I would sit at my computer all day long and be emailing people or doing QuickBooks or whatever, like just focused in, and you can't be creative, or at least I can't be, when I'm just tunnel vision in on this one thing. But being in the boat business, when I'm driving, and people are kind of doing their thing, I get an opportunity for my mind to just wander, and I don't have to feel bad, because like I feel like if I'm on my computer, I should be working on something. But if I'm driving and I'm like, okay, here are the people I've been talking to, maybe this is an avenue, and my creativity can kind of spin off. And so it's been really good for me to be able to just step away and have that reason that I have to get away and start to think outside the box.
Yeah, it's good because you're still getting paid. If you were out on your own boat and
Dude,
you're just going, I'm
yeah,
just gonna go for a ride today, then you'll start to feel guilty and all
yeah.
of that. Do you have, knowing that you served pizza when you were 15 or so, as one of your first jobs, mowing lawns as well, and other people who changed their career, do you have any tips for people who are getting into work one way or the other?
I would cut the grass at 13 years old, 14 years old. This was totally screwed up. My dad would pay me $5 to cut his lawn, and the lady next door was paying me like 10 or 12 or $15. I'm like, this is just, I mean, he's putting a roof over my head. I get it now,
Uh-huh.
but at the time, I'm like, this sucks. But I literally would think, when I was 13 and 14 years old, cutting the lawn, like, I'm going to cut this grass so good
Mhm.
that the neighbor across the street's going to come over and say, dude, you really cut that grass good. Nobody ever did, but I always cut it like somebody was watching, and
Mhm.
that they were going to see that that lawn was cut really well, and that they were going to come over and compliment me. I think it was Wilt Chamberlain that said, give more than anybody expects, and I just want to give more. I always do more than what people think they're going to get.
It's it's a really good point to watch. However you want to look at it is to do whatever you do as if someone's looking. I mean, for the benefit of it, but as if you do it well if no one's looking. However you want to look at it, it's still the idea of doing it to your best. And I think that's a good message, especially for younger people, but for older people too, right? Whatever we're doing, don't be slacking off and cutting corners and taking the easy way out. And all of us do it to a degree. I would say no one does everything perfectly, but it's great advice for people to really think, why are you doing this thing? And who could be watching you, or who's going to see the work that you've done at the end of the day.
I think it comes down to integrity, right? If you're walking down an alley and you're unwrapping, or you're eating a candy bar and you think nobody's around, and you just throw the wrapper on the ground because you think nobody's watching. But if you were out on the main street, you would stick that wrapper in your pocket and wait to get to the garbage can.
Hmm.
To me, it's integrity of doing what you would do whether somebody's watching or not, and that's served me well.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I didn't have that as much, and if I did do it, it would be because I thought someone was watching. I wouldn't want someone to think
Hmm.
something about me, but doing those things, regardless of who's watching, and being of integrity, I think it's something that we can all learn from, and take pleasure in knowing, and I wouldn't say be proud, but to know that we're setting a good example. And if no one
Hmm.
sees you doing it, it's the right thing that was done. So when
Yep.
the next person walks by and sees garbage on the ground, they're like, what fool just threw that, or who dropped that? You may
Hmm.
they not may not see it directly, but indirectly they'll see these attempts we're making to help people and do things that are right. Rob, is there a mistake that you would have made that you bring with you into your work, and it maybe encourages you to do things differently?
Um, I don't know. I tend to focus on the solution and not the problem as much. Things are going to happen all the time. I've definitely made mistakes in life and in my career, even in Million Dollar Collar. We were the first time we went to a dry cleaning trade show in Las Vegas, 4 days. Every major dry cleaner was there, and all these huge brands were there. I mean, Dickies, which is a huge brand, was right down the aisle from us. We barely scraped together enough money to get the three of us there and a couple of people we hired for the show. We had this little 10 by 10 corner booth, and it was spilled over for 4 days straight. Like, the guys from Dickies, from $1 billion Dickies, were like, "What are you guys doing down here? Are you giving away cocaine and drugs and like cash, or why are there so many people here?" And so we had built up a really good direct to consumer business, and I deal with the shipping, and I was dealing with the logistics, and it drove me crazy when the post office would lose an order, because it looks bad on me. You never think that it's the post office that lost it. It's like the guy that
Yeah.
shipped it didn't. I'm like, I don't own this. Even Jeff Bezos doesn't own the shipping company yet.
Mhm.
So, this third party drove me crazy. And so
Mhm.
I hated that customers weren't getting their product. We had almost 400 dry cleaners that represented 2,000 locations of dry cleaners in the US alone that were like, "This is the best thing ever. Sign me up. Here's my personal cell phone. Here's a copy of my birth certificate." Like, they were in love with what we were
All
doing.
in.
So I told my guys to shut off our Facebook ads direct to consumer, because we were going to be in 2,000 dry cleaners overnight. And it's a couple of years later, and those 2,000 locations still aren't there. So
Yeah.
uh, I I jumped the gun and cut
Mhm.
off the revenue source we had, thinking that something was going to happen that hadn't happened. And I'm a lot more cautious to like shut things off at this point. But
Well, you're
shit
living
happens.
that too with being an entrepreneur and doing different things, being a boat captain is, I think this is wise advice inadvertently as well, in that we need to be ready for the changing flow. While you might have had a good revenue option, a possibility, an opportunity, and it may be there tomorrow, you had to keep this other thing coming as well, because we never know. Especially, I heard someone the other day said, when I went to school, COVID was not on any of my tests or in any of my books to experience anything like this. So to be pliable, to be able to be stretched and use our different skills in different industries, and as well as be ready to make income in different ways, I think is a wise
Mhm.
decision. And you learn from that mistake.
Yeah, I mean, a great book. I think it's Stephen Covey, is Who Moved My Cheese. I mean, it's a 45-minute read, 30-minute read if you're a quick reader, and it's just all about being able to see that things are changing and adapting to the situation, and not waiting for it to happen. So I think you have to, especially in this day and age, you have to be fluid and able to adapt quickly.
You adapted when you found that you weren't interested in school, but a couple of years later, do you have a view of education? Is it hold true still today? And what about exercise? So education and exercise, how do they play a role in your life?
My personal view on college is it depends on what you're trying to do. I'm a big fan of Gary Vee, and I think he's hit it on the head. Instead of going to spend 50, 60, $70,000 going to college and getting a degree, and then going to try to get a job in the industry that you love with no skills, I think you're better off going to find the top 10 people in that industry in your town or wherever you're willing to go, and say, "I'll give you 10 grand, or just I'll come work for you for free. I just want to learn,"
Hmm.
and spend the money in, because I learned more in that little soccer and volleyball store than I ever did in college. And if you're passionate about interior design, I don't know that going to college for interior design is the way to go. I think finding the top interior design firms and just I don't care, give me a broom. Like Tim said
Yeah,
to my dad, I don't care what it
yeah,
is. This is
exactly.
where I want to be, because I know I'm going to learn from the best. And that's my dad ended up paying him and hiring him. And he said that he was going to be the next person that took over that company, because he was just so passionate about what was being done in my dad's, ecosystem that he had built.
Mhm.
So if you can put yourself into that mentality, and it's so different than what, our parents thought of. And my wife and I talked about it the other day. Like, we've done several different things. We've been together for 10 years, and we've had commercial properties, and she had a gym, and now she's a stunt woman, and now we have a boat business. And we're talking about maybe leaving California. And so it's like the last generation, they would get a job and work for 30 or 40 years. And that was the thing they did.
Mhm.
Now, we hop around every few years doing something different because we like the challenge and we like learning something new. And that's not wrong. That we struggle sometimes, but that struggle builds the hustle. And it's been great for us. Some people like the security. My mom, give me a job, give me a thing. I just want to know that there's revenue coming in every 2 weeks and I get my paycheck and I don't have to
Mhm.
worry about it. My dad was the opposite. So I got the best of both worlds. And uh, my wife and I just kind of figured it out, but it's just so different now. You just have to think about, a different way to do it.
With the struggle and the challenge, where do you place exercise?
Well, if you see my wife here in this photo, she's
As a
shredded.
stunt woman,
Uh,
I guess she must be.
she's a stunt. Yep, she's a stunt woman. She's always had 6-pack abs. She's starting her own online fitness business. She had a gym, so she's definitely more into the fitness than I am. But we've got stuff around the house, and
She drags you along and you're feeling guilty as you eat a donut. Oh,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I definitely eat much better. I used to eat a whole frozen pizza with ranch dressing when I first met her. I don't do that. I don't dip anymore. But I work it in. The cool thing with her new site is it's all based on 10 minutes. It's not about
what is your wife's
going.
site?
It's called the it's transformationroomfit.com. And it's all about 10-minute workouts because everybody's got 10 minutes in their day and you don't need to go to the gym for an hour to feel accomplished. Sometimes it's just peeling away 10 minutes and just doing something for yourself to just get the heart rate up and the blood flowing. And that 10 minutes a day can impact you a lot more than thinking that you're going to go to the gym for an hour, 3 days a week, and it just doesn't happen. So you can knock out 10 minutes. So I've been much better at just peeling off and saying, I'm shutting everything off for 10 minutes. I'm going to go do 100 push-ups or do my pull-ups or dips or whatever, or watch one of her videos and just get something in every single day. Because health is so much more important than anything else.
I should have had that yesterday. Yesterday, because I had a class to teach. So I put my exercise clothes on before the class. It was just here at home. So I didn't need a suit or $1 million collar for this class. Anyway, my other classes I do. And I had my exercise clothes on all day. And then I didn't exercise. I used every excuse in the book. Even in the end, I was
Yeah.
eating chips with my exercise clothes on, but I surely needed that. Just do this, as you said, do some push-ups, watch the video. And that my dear wife actually did her exercises yesterday. I felt
Yeah.
guilty that she
I
pumped
know.
me up and I didn't.
Yeah, it's tough. She's so good at it. Like even when she really came up with it because like today she's on set. And sometimes you'll have some time in between shoots or in between takes or scenes or whatever. And she's sitting in her trailer. She's like, well, I don't want to sit here and twiddle my thumbs. I need stuff that I can do, even if it's for 10 minutes. And I don't need to get sweaty, but I just need to kind of get the blood flowing a little bit and get a little
Mhm.
energy back in. And,
That's what
yeah,
you're doing with your
it's awesome.
business. As you go out on the boat, you're thinking about these other things. And while she's out on the set, she's taking care
Hmm.
of herself, which is part of her business. So you guys
Yep.
have that same thing going for you. Rob, what is an overarching goal that you have, whether it's for the $1 million collar or, some of your other ventures you're in?
So the big goal with $1 Million Collar is to be ubiquitous. I mean, there's just really no reason why it shouldn't be in every shirt. I love when a customer gives me a review and says, this should be in every single shirt because it's so lightweight and flexible. You can button all the way up and wear a tie. So it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
affect you if you want to wear a tie.
Mm.
If you don't want to wear a tie, it's there. So there's really no reason not to have it. I think it's like the next collar stay. Um, they say in the US at least 90% of dress shirts most of the time are worn without a tie. We're talking to the biggest brands in the world and they're like, oh no, we're coming out with this stretch collar. Like you are so far behind who
Mm.
cares if you have a stretch collar for 10% of the market wears a
Mm.
tie every day.
Mm.
We have a thing for the 90% of the market for the people that don't wear. So I feel like $1 Million Collar eventually, hopefully will be in every single shirt or most shirts made. That's the big goal with that. Go Tieless, we're actually pivoting a little bit. We were going to make our own dress shirts and kind of compete in that world, but I've got an idea and a little concept that we're kind of pivoting the company and we're going to take it a little bit different direction, but it's going to be insanely cool and a huge company. Um, And the boat business, we could go either way. We could grow it. We could add 2 more boats under our license. We've had clients out that said, dude, I can go to a Michelin restaurant in New York and I get better service on this boat
Mm.
than I do there. So if you want to add more boats or you need financing or whatever you want to do, you want to expand this business, I'll fund it. I mean, there's people that have come out and literally said that to us. So our plate's really full. I mean, we have, I think, 6 or 7 LLCs between my wife and I active right now. So we're very into a lot of things. And so we're kind of trying to fine tune a little bit and focus a little bit more. And yeah, who
That's
knows where the world's going to take.
That's common though. You're an entrepreneur, you're an inventor, so you're going to have other things on the horizon. You're going to have other things up your sleeve, things that you're not necessarily saying right now, but things in the works. Is there any other things that people or anything in particular people may not understand about you, Rob, so that they can have a better appreciation of the work that you're doing?
Um, it's all about, to me, it's all about the hustle and the grind. I mean, as long as I make a little bit of progress every day, I'm working in the right direction. So this is taking longer than I thought it was to be where I needed it to be or where I thought it would be, but giving up doesn't allow it to grow anymore. So I've been sticking with it through, I've heard 10,000 no's. Um, and we're starting to hear yeses, and we're starting to hear people turn the corner. And I think coming out of COVID, any of these brands want to compete in the market in the next couple of years are going to have to innovate. I mean, the same old thing, dress shirts have been made the same way for 100 years, and they're going to come out of this and stand out. They're going to have to innovate. So hopefully that works in our favor. Um, I'm very accessible. I mean, if anybody has a question, anybody wants to know about the patent process or where I've been, or if they have, I love talking business. So if anybody wants to reach out, I'm absolutely available. You can email me and uh, connect with me on LinkedIn, whatever, and we'll have a conversation. I'm happy to help any way I can.
What I find fascinating about doing this podcast and talking to people like yourself is especially people who have different things going. So you're able to not like a child, like a baby, but say, well, this child, this business is, it's on the go. I've received some no's. It's growing. We have some difficulties. You're able to separate these different things, and they're not yourself. It's not like I'm failing in my business. No, I have 2 successful things going on over here. And I find that really interesting how you're able to differentiate between the business side of it, your personal life, and say, I'm putting my effort into this baby, this thing right now, and watching it grow and seeing how far I can take it. I find that really interesting about business people.
Well, again, I think it comes down to focusing on the solution and not the problem. I mean, I think people get caught up in, oh, I got a flat tire on the highway, and why did this happen to me? And boo-hoo and blah blah.
Yeah.
Okay, you got a flat tire. How do you fix it? Is it a run flat? Then get to a place and get a new tire. If it's not, go change it. Like, find the solution and let's move on. Problems come up all the time, so they can drag you down. I mean, and then the other thing is living in Los Angeles. It's either going to inspire you to see Lamborghinis and Ferraris and McLarens all over the place, or it's going to make you insane and want to hate all those people. And to me, it's inspiring. That means that it's possible. I mean, I drive our boat, and I look up houses that are for sale, and there's $110 million house, one of the places where we anchor. And people that come in from out of town are like, oh, how much are these houses? I go, that one's $110 million.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even fathom that kind of money, but it's right there, and I live close to it, and I can see it, and that means that somebody I know that I know that I know knows the person that owns that house, and that's crazy.
That would be great for you to be a real estate agent there too, because you
Oh
can point
God,
like you want that one,
yeah.
right? Because you could be taking people on the
I
tour.
thought about it. I loved real estate, but I really wanted to focus on $1 million collar, and
Hmm.
it's been good.
Is there any adversity that you have faced, Rob, that you use in your work either to motivate you or maybe it kind of brings you down at times, but in the idea of encouraging other people who have faced adversity?
Um, yeah, I mean, look, I did not have a like super spectacular childhood. I mean, my dad and I have gone through probably 5 or 6 years total of not speaking or seeing each other. And that was brutal, especially when you're 13 years old, 14 years old and developing, growing, and becoming a man, and I don't have a father. So, I've been through really, really tough and dark times. I would drive, weirdly, I would just, I got my license, and my way to kind of just decompress would just be drive around. I told you I loved architecture. I grew up on the east side of Milwaukee. There's all these beautiful homes, and I would just drive around. And there was days that I felt so down that I'm like, there's a bluff right there, and I don't have to deal with this anymore. And but then I said, I don't want that to define me. Whatever the problem was, I didn't want that to win. So, you look at Oprah, and on paper, she should not be where she's at based on her childhood and the things that happened to her. But, you can either focus on the problem or focus on the solution. I don't know. I just, bad stuff happens to everybody, and it's how you want to handle it and how you want to look forward.
Rob, how can people get in contact with you?
So the main email is Rob, R-O-B, at milliondollarcollar.com. That's my personal email that's open all day long, every day. Or find me on LinkedIn, Robert Kessler, I think, or Rob Kessler. So just look up $1 Million Collar, you'll find us.
One final question there, Rob. Why do you work?
I want the eventual freedom. That's part of it. I think the success, I watched my dad grow his business from nothing to massive. He sold the company to his employees 2 years ago, and it was doing $35 or $36 million a year in revenue from literally zero in his lifetime, which is pretty amazing to watch. And I see what he gets to do. He helps out his family. He takes us on vacation every once in a while, like every few years. But he just gets to do stuff, and he's got freedom, but he loves the challenge. He's very actually involved in $1 Million Collar and Go Tileless. And now I talk to him every single day. We're working on different, problems. We're together, we're growing. And so the success of having done something is exciting to me. I meet somebody new, or a friend introduces me, oh my God, this is $1 Million Collar, you got to meet Rob, blah, blah. And people that think that my product is amazing is rocket fuel. It's the best feeling ever. So I couldn't do nothing. Like, I just need to feel like I'm accomplishing something. Like, the hardest thing moving from Milwaukee, where I had these commercial buildings in our house, that I had this garage, basement full of tools, and moving to Los Angeles to an apartment, was getting rid of all of my tools. Like, I don't have my saws, and I don't have my hammers, and I give it all to my brother-in-law, and I'm like, dude, it took part of my manhood away. Like, I need to fix stuff. I need to use my hands. I had a screen printing business, and I just loved actually screen printing, because I could see it go from a blank t-shirt to this design that somebody handed me, and I created all the stuff in between, and I made that shirt happen. Like, that was cool. Like, I just like being able to see it grow and develop something. So I just love building stuff. I've got other ideas in my head, and I need to get through the first couple to get to the next one, And if you look back at the last 10 or 15 years and what I did that rolled into the next thing, it's rolled into the next thing, that bought us the yacht that is now this great business that we're, looking to figure out what we're going to do next. And it's just cool to look back. People get caught, I think, in the moment, and they forget to look back for a minute and say, where was I 5 years ago? And say, dude, you've come a long way.
I believe you have come a long way, Rob. Rob Kessler, an inventor, boat captain, serial entrepreneur, and with a great name and great product, the $1 Million Collar. I appreciate the time you've given me, and I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm BrianVee. Thank you for watching this. Rob was great. He's a man on a mission, an inventor, and check out his $1 Million Collar. As for me, subscribe, share, like, follow, get that notification button hit. And if you're interested in being a guest, or someone that would make a good guest on Why We Work, just email me at whywework@brianv@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to oblige. I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work.